Gachagua is not even this big, behemoth of a politician. Gachagua is a one-time former MP, first-time deputy president. That is all there is to it, with a lot of unexplained money, which he himself says it's his brother's money, not even his money. So I'll tell El Padrino for free that the real power in government resides in the office of Raimundo Molo. Raymond might be quiet, might be very polite and in the shadows, but that is the way it has always been. That is the way it will always be. So to insinuate, all these funny things and to breathe fire and brimstone. And by the way, this is why our leaders always run into the ethnic cocoon, so that they can bloviate and threaten that, if you remove me, Murima itaripuka. Come on. Those are all outdated things, and they're not going to happen. What's going to happen is that the Constitution is going to stand because it has to. The Constitution of the country is going to stand because it has to. If anyone else has to be impeached, including the president, that time will come, that day will come. But it is again erroneous to say, here we have a culprit, but then because we have other culprits, just let's leave and let the bunch grow and let the cancer fester. In fact, Ken, cancer is removed piece by piece. If you have very serious lung cancer, they don't have to cut the whole chest. They start with the area where it is blackest, where the cancer is the most, and then you can ask any oncologist to remove pole until full healing is accomplished. And so this is again a vicious argument that these guys are trying to make. It is a misleading argument. It is an argument that is diluting very serious charges. I dare say that the government probably has charges even that they have not disclosed to the public. Because why is it that there are officials in Gachagua, including members of parliament of his, that apparently have shown that their phones and their lines are involved in a conspiracy to infiltrate the protest and to pay and ultimately to overthrow the government. That's the allegation. I have no basis as Benji Ndolo to dismiss that allegation outright, to discuss that allegation outright. It is only on the accused to prove otherwise, beyond the benefit of the doubt, against the adduced evidence. That is law 101. That is law 101.
You mentioned my pet subject on recall, and I'll be telling you about it. But I guess before we go to the second hour, there's one lady who has volunteered to speak, and let's hear the lady's voice in this debate. Clara Wambui, time is yours. Clara? All right, the stage is for Clara, but because it was a lady's time, Abby, you've been listening a lot to us. Perhaps you want to chime in once more?
Yes, please. Thanks, Ken. Listening to Benji and the good Wakili El Padrino, I'm just in awe because based on how they are speaking and how they are making their submissions, you can tell where politically they are inclined towards. And it is so sad because at the end of the day, and this is the question in every Kenyan's mind, and I think it's very important for the political class to understand that we do not care about who gets impeached as long as our issues are not sorted. It is so evident that they have not yet gotten it, that June 25th did not completely register in their minds what needs to be done, that we are in year 2 and we have been plunged into a whole political environment where people have either to choose whether they defend Rigathi Gachagua or they defend the president, which is so sad because let me take you back to when to the last regime. And there were rumors, ridiculous rumors of the things, audacious things, ridiculous things that the current president used to do to the former president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Others were so serious, and I'll say this allegedly so that I'm not taken to court. Others were so serious, and it was in the streets, and we had it, all of us, in our own spaces. We had it, that the current president had attempted to overthrow the then president. But we did not see ourselves where we are right now currently in Kenya. We did not see any issues on matters of impeachment. What that regime did and how they figured it out, how the president maneuvered and how he intentionally ensured that he did not put us in this space that we are in. We are in year two. There are serious issues that Kenyans are raising. We are suffering. The high cost of living continues to go up. But the political class has decided, because there's cause that needs to be evened out, that because one person has, I don't know, done what to the other person, that should be our business, that should be the order of the day, that the whole country should stop and listen to their issues, as if we don't have problems of our own that we need to deal with, problems that are completely aligned and are completely caused by the inefficiency of this government to perform and deliver service to their people. So I'm still baffled that even as we continue to have this conversation, we completely are not attempting to understand where Kenyans are coming from. And they came out very clearly, and they're saying, both of them, dereva na makanga wake, hakuna kitu wanatusaidia, and they need to go home because they continue to disregard our voice, they continue to disregard our plight, and they continue to assume that we don't know what we are talking about, that we don't have issues that we are bringing on the table, and that their interests and their issues should come as a priority over ours. So Mijungu, from my analysis, the political class bado haijashikanisha what is happening, but I'm happy because this is awakening the Kenyans. More Kenyans are waking up, and we need a woke country, and we need Kenyans to go back to the streets and bring this political class kwa level yetu. Juu hatuko pamoja at all. So that is all we want to say for now. Yes. Bado wako juu. Bado hawajashuka hata kidogo.
As you say that, I don't know if Clara is already here. Clara, if you'll...
Ken, as we wait for Clara, assist me kidogo hapa, because I want to respond to Padrino in a very objective manner. Ken, assist me kidogo. This thing that Great County is IBEC. What does IBEC? I can't remember what IBEC stands for.
You want me to ask?
Yes, sorry, this body, the DP chairs that coordinate the IBEC. Now, the IBEC under Article 174, and we talked about the DP's utterances earlier. The objects of the devolution of government are here I'm reading word for word: to promote democratic and accountable exercise of power, to foster national unity by recognizing diversity, to give powers of self-governance of the people and enhance the participation of the people in the exercise of powers of the state, in making decisions affecting them, to protect and promote the interests and rights of minorities and marginalized communities. That is 174E. I mean, just reading that, on the face of it, prima facie, Abi Zuena. This is the constitution I'm reading. I'm not reading an opinion, a legal opinion. I'm not reading a political magazine. I'm reading the constitution of Kenya. And the person who in his official capacity as deputy president chairs the body that looks at devolution and sits with governors and addresses the issues when money is being disbursed late. This person is the chairman of Murima, and everywhere he goes and stands, he speaks of Wakikuyu and Central and Murima. This is outright violation of the constitution. And I'm telling you guys on this space that if we continue to treat the constitution like tissue paper, this is the way that this country will go down. It is really, really, really unacceptable, Ken, that we look at the constitution as a suggestion. The constitution says this, so you can either read it or understand it or choose to understand it how you want. That is how failed states happen. So it's not about targeting Gachagua per se. No, for me, it is how thoroughly Gachagua and others trash the constitution. And here I've just given you one article. This article is part of his case. Part of his case is, maybe I'll read another one, Article 186 or 189, but for me, it's very troubling and very confusing even for a governor from West Pokot, for a governor from Mandera, all of whom are Kenyan governors, who arrive in Karen, and it is Gachagua chairing the meeting, discussing their issues, and Gachagua truly doesn't give a hell shit about stuff like that. He's a girl, Murima. In fact, he should just be removed and go to Murima. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
Akue governor. Anyway,
governor hata akue tu spokesman ya Murima. Thank you.
Benji, you mentioned, and this is just for the purpose of education, and we are going to another area of our discussion tonight on the recall. You said this. You asked why they have never actualized the recall clause in the Constitution, recalling members of Parliament, and you attributed this to a lot of lawyers being in the National Assembly. I think a lot of us have forgotten that case between Katiba Institute and the Attorney General back in 2016, where there was Katiba, there was Action Initiative, and the AG was one of the respondents in that case. Part of the orders, the final orders, was a declaration that section 45(2)(3) and 46(1)(b), 2 and C and 48 of the Elections Act was declared unconstitutional. You know, those two acts that were preventing the recall. So that the members of Parliament were so clever, what they did, and sorry, I'm digressing just for the purpose.
That was under Duale. That's what they used to do.
Yeah. So what happened is it was made so tight that you cannot impeach them before 2 years in office. And when you start the process, you have to begin from the court, find a reason to recall them. And by the time that process was done, they tell you cannot also impeach them when they barely have 2 years in office to exit. So all those clauses have been made unconstitutional. So right now, believe me, the first recall that will happen in this country will go through. Because all those things they try, you know, the way you protect yourself because you're the ones who do this subsidiary legislation, it's been declared unconstitutional. And you know, the judges who are sitting on this case for so long, they're the very best. Kimondo was there, Odunga, and Mwita. So Kenyans should just know, I just brought in that for the purpose of educating.
That is really amazing of you to do. That is amazing of you to do, Ken. And that's why I went back to the culture. Remember when I talk about their entitlement culture, that me, I ran as deputy president, so I'm a co-president, etc. That is the same vein with which MPs under Duale, because under Duale there was a lot of unconstitutional behavior, passing of very heinous bills for self-protection and because these people look at politics as a business for self-actualization, you know, and for their own benefit and for their own good. How can you? I mean, how do you say, this Constitution, Article 1 is about the people, and the people elected me into this position. How dare I come up with a bill that prevents Abby, who is my voter, from expressing her dissatisfaction with my performance and actually, you know, curtailing her ability to hold me accountable? Just think about that. I mean, we've got such egregious violation of the Constitution. It really bothers me, Ken. It's not even about Gachagua. It's about Gachagua today, but it's about many other things in general. And then how dare we say we have Gachagua caught now, but let's let him escape until we have a rabbit. We've caught a warthog, but let's let him escape until we catch all animals. That's a fallacious argument.
Benji, because I want us to go also to the charges. There are about 22, but we'll break them down to the 11 general ones so that we look at them. But do you think this Maneno ya Mrima, I've heard it from all over the place, and it's straight from the horse's mouth. Do you think it's this enfranchising, if I got the word right, and it's a danger to cohesion of this country? And in what way? Because wanasemanga siasa ni local, ni kwa ground.
But you see, Ken, and you're right, disenfranchisement, you got the word right. You are right, Ken. You know, the fact that this country is 61 years old, and of the 61 years, most of the presidents in this country have been people from Murima, have been Kikuyus. It then tells you how insensitive, how unfair, how crude it is for a holder of the highest office to continue to rub it in the face of Kenyans that, yes, I am here as a national leader in quotes, but me, my only care is about Murima. Murima, which, I'm quoting him, has some 7 million votes. Murima, which somehow is better than the rest of the country. I mean, this guy needs to be kicked out. It's wrong. It's backward, and we must say it. So yes, it is disenfranchisement. Yes, it is unconstitutional. Yes, it is tribal. Yes, it is so last century. This is not on. This is not the stuff that we should be discussing under our new constitution in 2024. So absolutely, if you look at the defined functions in 147, all right, 147 too, the deputy president shall perform the functions conferred by this constitution and other functions of the president, and as the president may assign. Now, let me throw a small curveball for the benefit of people like Abby. Uhuru and Ruto were such tactical players. I believe that's the only way they were able to contain Raila and Kalonzo, who had a huge following. A lot of the games from the past regime have really confused a lot of people, but I'll tell you for free, Uhuru and Ruto were brothers, and if Ruto were to overthrow the government, he'd have already overthrown it long ago. There was no such deal ever, and the only thing that was there that I wouldn't go further into was the president then saying, mimi yangu kumi na ya huyu ndugu yangu kumi.
And it came to pass.
And it came to pass. So when I hear people like Abby saying things they hear on the street, I wonder which street, because I'm on all the streets, man, and you know it.
Abby is going to come back and speak to us. And there's a few of us, and thank you for joining this space. We're discussing the impeachment, the impending impeachment. Is it a reality, and what next for the country? In my shows, Benja, I usually say, we are Kenya and Kenya is our business. And I stand with that, by the way. We are Kenya. And even hosting these experts just to ventilate on these matters. I have the option of tomorrow being on air, or on Tuesday or on Wednesday, and talking about them. But I usually believe when you bring it to people and people are able to talk about it, it's much better than my thoughts. They had a lot of meat to eat, and that's why I even went to TikTok. But Anton
But I think this thing is so hot, Ken. I think we must have a show.
Yes. We're going to have a show. Even tomorrow, I'm already thinking of what we can talk about tomorrow.
I think we must have this thing has gotten so hot, I've seen. I think we must have a show, also so that we don't endanger the confusion, because there's quite a bit of confusion on this topic. Thank you.
Okay, Antonina, I'm coming to you, but the other people who are watching and they're not going to participate. I'd like to read something as we prepare. So when we come back, Antondola, Senior, I'll give you an opportunity, because you've been hanging in the sidelines asking to speak tonight. And there are also other people who have requested, and I've also sent you the microphone. So you need to accept from your side so that you can speak. But I'd like to read this. The impeachment process is fundamentally a political process rather than a legal, procedural, designed to address serious misconduct by high-ranking public officials, typically by political bodies such as the legislatures, parliament in our case, and National Assembly and the Senate, rather than the judicial system. So this has to sink in. And it's based on perceived breaches of public trust, rather than strictly on violation of criminal law. Because we had an advocate Aaron mentioning this, so someone sent me this. Further, in the United States, for example, the impeachment process begins in the House of Reps, where members decide whether there is sufficient evidence or political will to change or to charge an official with high crimes and misdemeanors in quotes, a term that has historically been open to interpretation. This is followed by drafting of articles of impeachment, which functions as formal charges. That is what we are going to next. In the House, if the House rather votes to impeach, the process then moves to the Senate. Now, Senate, even in our case, becomes the trial house next week on Thursday, because by Thursday this week, they shall be seized of this matter if they impeach on Tuesday. Now, the Senate, not a court of law, a quasi-judicial body, acts as the jury, and where 2/3 majority vote is required for conviction and removal from the office. Throughout this process, the courts have little involvement. It is only at the tail end, after the official is removed from office, that the judiciary might become involved in criminal or civil charges if they are pursued. Now, the courts do not determine guilt or innocence in the impeachment proceedings. Instead, they may address any subsequent legal matters that arise from the officials' conduct. Thus, impeachment is a political safeguard rather than a legal mechanism. It is designed to protect the integrity of public offices and uphold democratic governance, rather than punish criminal wrongdoing in the traditional sense, leaving legal accountability to the courts after the political process runs the full course or is concluded. I like this writing. I mean, it's opening my mind today. Things that I didn't even know about. So, Antondila, you have the mic. Antondola.
Thank you, Ken. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Speaker. Yes, I have listened to every speaker from Ben to our sister Abby to the advocate. And when the advocate was speaking, I was just laughing at my end because you asked him some important questions, but he did not answer any of the questions. Number one, in politics, nothing happened by accident. And again, in politics, we require. Sorry, with my mic. Sorry.
No, we can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. And again, I was saying that political problems require political solutions. When the framers of the 2010 Constitution were drafting the Constitution, they came up with an impeachment as a process to fix political problems. By profession, I happen to be a political scientist by profession. And as I have told you that in politics, nothing happened by mistake. The drafting of the impeachment motion of the deputy president came to fix a political problem that was happening in our country. And I've heard some speakers say, I'm reading the impeachment motion in Bruta. I have gone through the impeachment motion from the first to the 57th page. There's nothing like Bruta. The impeachment motion was drafted on the grounds as provided in our Constitution. If you read the Article 144, 145, and related to Article 150, that talks about the impeachment of the deputy president. So, and our deputy president is also a political scientist. And I like him because he has mastered the art of politics. You see, and my fellow JMCs at the Millennium, I'm already into the trap. Because when we say that we want, or when the parliament say that they want to impeach the deputy president, on the grounds that are provided in the Constitution, you had my fellow you saying that impeach for. We don't have such provision in the Constitution that talk about impeach for. It's not there. It's either you impeach the deputy president one at a time, then you impeach the president. And the impeachment of either the president and the deputy president must be accompanied by supportive evidence that they have violated the Constitution, gross misconduct, or any other law as provided by the Constitution. Number two, Ken, impeachment motion is purely constitutional political. Impeachment motion is not driven by judiciary. And that's why the new Constitution 2010 talks about separation of powers. The Parliament has its own powers, the judiciary has its own powers. So where the judiciary comes in the process of impeachment of either the president or the deputy president, is where the Constitution has been violated. And that is the one thing that that advocate did not inform us. If the Parliament will not follow the procedure as provided in the Constitution, then the judiciary will chip in and make a ruling on that. But the Parliament is mandated to do impeachment of either the president or the deputy president on the grounds as provided in the Constitution. No matter how people will say impeach for, no matter how people will say, "Si dereva, anguka dereva, makanga," or whatever, but it counts that the mover of the motion will convey the number 1A of the Constitution. The deputy president as practicing corruption. The deputy president has at this office or any other law that the mover of the motion will table in Parliament. And sometimes our politics is characterized by individualism and tribalism. That's why you see when you ask a person who is saying that now impeach God, or you ask a person who is saying now let us impeach Ruto, now then you ask that person, give us the grounds that will make us.
We lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Proceed.
Yes. So, no matter how we are fighting for good governance, yes, we want good government. We want our leaders to do for us what they are mandated to do for us, as by the Constitution. But we as Kenyans also let us learn to do things in a constitutional way. There's no problem of impeaching the president. Actually, there's no problem. But let us have a member of parliament drafting a motion, collect the signatures as required by the law, then submit the motion, then table the motion in parliament, let the parliament discuss if they are contended that the president has violated the constitution or the president has practiced any form of corruption, they will be impeached. Actually, we'll go home. So let us learn to do things in a constitutional way. As I have said that our politicians have mastered the art. Have mastered the art of strategy.
Okay.
And leadership is a potent combination of strategy and character. Unfortunately, the deputy president has good strategy, but he doesn't have character. And because he doesn't have character, the lack of character that is taking him home. And the rest of us who have gone through that motion, the deputy president will go home. As a patriotic citizen who abide by the law. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much. That was really burning. I don't know if I should add more speakers on this because I really need to start looking at. We have a few minutes. We extend it a little bit. We're supposed to end at 10:30, but we'll try and extend it until 10. So we have about 40 minutes to look at this. Benji, as I look for the motion, would you just pick it up from there?
Thanks, Ken. I really want to just highlight one small thing and then go, this is a space that I can see as well. And by the way, thank you to everybody listening. Thank you to everybody joining. This is a space that is well attended. There are a lot of strong minds here, a lot of professionals, lawyers are on here. I just want to make one small correction to Atondolo and then go to the substance of this discussion. And that correction is Atondolo gets it right when he says that, yes, procedures must be used and, you must decide if you're going to go for the deputy president, then you do that. If you're going to go for a CS, then you do that. If you're going to go for the president, then you do that. It's this thing of doing a wholesale, kind of thing is like, it's a wrong assumption. Where I want to correct the young man is he also seems to subscribe to this whole game that now, because Gachagua is looking pitiful and he's going to church and kneeling down and asking for forgiveness, that should carry water. I want to correct him because politics, some of us don't believe in the Machiavellian type of politics. Politics is not just about trickery and gimmickry. This kind of thinking is what has gotten us where we are because our politicians have not been real. They have not been leaders. They've only been tricksters, nothing more. I just want to expound further, Ken, if you allow me, on, I talked about the role the DP plays in the IBEC, and if I could just go further, because I'm just doing a bit of reading as the space continues, by focusing on a single region's interests and implying a preferential approach, obviously, the deputy president inadvertently promotes exclusion and discrimination, which of course those fly in the face of constitutional, permits, constitutional basis, the formation of this country. It runs counter to constitutional principle. Such actions may lead to a perception of partiality and favoritism, of course, that Murima is deserving and should get more, effectively eroding public trust in the office he holds and fostering division among other and different communities. A leader who prioritizes the interests of one group over the whole nation can create an environment of alienation where marginalization of communities and neglect becomes a cause for sparking tensions and undermining national cohesion. This behavior can be viewed as a violation of constitutional mandates that emphasize equality, non-discrimination, inclusivity in governance as a very basic minimum. Most modern constitutions enshrine principles of fairness, equal representation, and the protection of all, and I stress here once again, all citizens' rights, regardless of their geographical or ethnic backgrounds. By acting in a manner that prioritizes the interests of one group, the deputy president violates the oath of office, which typically includes a pledge to protect and serve the nation, the entire nation, impartially. Moreover, this pattern of conduct can be seen as promoting unofficial state-sponsored discrimination, setting a dangerous precedent where political leaders feel emboldened to cater only to select groups based on political calculations, because hapa naweza pata kura, pale hakuna kura, that kind of thing. This not only contradicts the values of our representative democracy, but also risks turning favoritism into an official governing policy, which is absolutely unconstitutional and undermines the principles of equal treatment under the law, and on and on. Ken, this is what I was highlighting when I'm talking about basic. I'm not talking even about crimes here. Crimes will come, I'm sure, in the trial. But here I'm talking about just basic disrespect for office and basic violation of the Constitution. It might speak volumes that the deputy president from the word go was even unable to utter his oath accurately, to the shock of many. For me, I even forgave him on that day because I thought he was just passionate and excited and maybe a little nervous. But if you remember, the oath as was administered by Anne Amadi, the registrar, Gachagua could not even read that oath. It has actually come back to haunt him because he took a wrong oath. He put the oath in his own words. He didn't internalize the oath. He didn't understand the oath. And now he's in total violation of the oath to the point that his boss does not even want to see him. To me, it is not a trivial matter. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to the charges, but Linus Gerald, you have been asking to speak. I'll give you an opportunity also to say something.
Thank you very much, Ken and Benji. Thank you for hosting this space. I hope I'm audible enough.
Loud and clear.
Thank you so much. I want to be very brief on this one. What is becoming clear is that the political class, and I mean the entire political class, is completely out of touch with the reality of the ground. Among the political class currently we have, none of them realizes the definition of the nation Kenya. Secondly, none of them acknowledges that the people who put them into those offices are their bosses. Once they are elected, once they assume office, they become bosses unto themselves. And that's the reason why they believe, purportedly so, that they can achieve whatever means, whatever end that they intend to achieve once they're in office. Now, if we come to the matter at hand, the deputy president, he has his mistakes, he has his faults, as Benji points out. But then the major question that people are asking is one: who is clean? Who is without blemish? Who is not tribal? Who is not corrupt? These people are in the same pool. These people swim in the same waters. These people play the same game. It's a chess game. They play politics. They use politics to manage the populace. They use politics as a means to an end to achieve all that they want at the expense of the people who put them in the office. The charges against the deputy president, if the same charges were leveled against Kimani Chungwa or Adan Duale or William Ruto or whoever, any other politician for that matter, who could have survived? The deputy president has made mistakes, okay, granted. He has always championed the interest of the Mount Kenya region, granted, but who doesn't do that? Every politician given an opportunity, given a platform in this country, they always put first the regions they come from. And that's why it's a tendency that every time a politician is taken to court, the first statement they utter is, my community is being targeted. They all use their community as a shield. So the reasons why even the public participation on Friday, the chorus out there was that let both go, it's simply because all these people are the same. Getting rid of Gachagua, number one, is not a priority. Number two, it does not solve many of the predicaments that the people face in this country today. There are so many other bills that are of serious importance, both at the National Assembly and at the Senate, but none of them has ever been none of them, the political class, have ever mobilized the people to attend the public participation sessions as they did this one of impeachment, simply because this one served their interest. Personally, my take is there must be a game, or they're simply trying to eliminate. It's just a group of wolves. They're trying to eliminate one wolf simply because that wolf is getting uncomfortable with the way they are distributing the meat. Because all these things, the disagreements, all of them are just happening at the table. Yeah? So my take is the people are awake, the people are alert, the political class are becoming uncomfortable with it. This impeachment issue is a political tool meant to disrupt the people, meant to distract the people from the serious matters that the people are facing currently. And that's why Kenyans come out and Kenyans pronounce themselves clearly, saying that whatever you presented to us, it's not important. We have other serious matters. We have serious issues that are affecting us daily. The impeachment of the deputy president is not a solution. Ruto presented to us the deputy president as a candidate, believing that he was the best. My take is his choice for Gachagua was simply because he wanted the numbers. He wanted someone who could countermand Uhuru Kenyatta in Central. And Gachagua delivered that. And once Gachagua delivered that, now it's time to dump in, because the game plan is for 2027. That's exactly what is going on. Because there is no single politician who can survive the very charges that have been leveled against Gachagua. So these people are all the same. So Ken, my take is, I would love the people to keep being vigilant. Now is the bill at the Senate. Yeah? There are the other bill at the Senate that should also be coming for public participation. There are the other bills that they never brought, and they never gave the same energy that they've given this impeachment. So it is a game that has been played for far too long, and I believe it is a wake-up call, because sincerely speaking, this country is at the tipping point.
Okay.
And the president, because he's the one in the office, he has the keys to stabilize this country.
Okay.
If not, a day is coming, a time is coming that this thing is going to explode and nobody will be able to contain it. Thank you.
Let me ask you, so in your own view, because of all those things you mentioned, up to the fact that no one can survive this impeachment, because of how you view it, would you rather we deal with this problem, which is a political problem, or would you rather we stop and rethink about the whole thing?
My take is the entire country has to stop and deeply retrospect and rethink if we're indeed a nation or not.
Okay.
Because until that moment that we all realize that we are one nation, these problems will keep coming up and will always have hostilities. Because whatever is happening now are compared to those who come from the areas that grow sugarcane, are compared as the fire underneath the bagasse. You might think things are calm and painful and peaceful, yet underneath bagasse there's intense heat.
Okay. So what then happens to the charges? Because I want to, before Linus, before we move on, and I'd like to know what happens to these charges, because these are very serious charges, right? They are very serious charges that have been brought against the deputy president, and you say that no one can survive them. So do we just let these things fester until when? Are you still here? Okay, I think we okay.
Do you get me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm saying this is a political process, and the charges leveled against the deputy president are real, and we cannot sweep them away. But the only issue I have with them is let the deputy president, okay, of course, he'll have his time at the National Assembly or at the trial house, which is the Senate, to defend himself and also present his side of the case. That one is granted. This process has to run its course to the very end. But my challenge to the populace or to the people or to us who are in this space is that it is time to be alert, it is time to be awake, it is time to take back and make the politicians realize that we are the bosses. The voters are the bosses. In fact, if it were my wish, this was the time that every constituency was to invoke the recall clause and recall their members of parliament, so that you paralyze everything and we start afresh.
Okay. Benji, on these charges, I want to do an overview of the charges because we have to end this in a few minutes. So there is a charge there.
Before the overview, Ken, overview,
okay.
Linus has done a good presentation. However, if you go to the beginning, to the top of this broadcast, to the top of this space, you can see that what Linus is doing is called rationalization. He is conceding that the deputy president is wrong. He's conceding that there is not much good coming from that office, from the hold of the office. He's also saying that the same is true of other office holders. He is also saying that of all the people in the mountain, Gachagua was the best. Well, you're in the media, it was not exactly true. You know how long it took and how Kindiki was a front runner. So I think he's being economical with the truth. There's a lot of things happening in this matter, in this case. And again, I am very much advocating against rationalization. I am very much advocating against, justifying wrongdoing in the same of, Kenya is doing kidnappings and undermining democracy, but so is Sudan. So it's South Sudan. So is Somalia. So this is just what I tried to highlight, and you can continue, Ken.
Okay, I think you make a good point. You make a good point. At the end of the day, this is a political process, and we'll see what happens. So I just want to rush through some of these charges that we will be hearing from the National Assembly on Tuesday, and I know a lot of people have read them. So the first one that caught my attention was this one on the DP committing economic crimes, which they say is against the sections of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, and also the Proceeds of Crimes and Anti-Money Laundering. That is when they are talking about the property that he's acquired just in 2 years, worth some 5.2 billion shillings. And this, the mover will bring out very clearly. So the other thing that caught my attention also is the fact that the mover is linking his wife, Dorcas, and two sons, Kevin and Keith, and other close family members and associates as proxies of the deputy. And I know, Benji, you spoke to this earlier, but the deputy is accused of using his proxies, especially the two sons have mentioned, to allegedly massively launder money and conceal proceeds of crime, corruption, and of course, there's some sort of benefit from the influence peddling. Being in that position, you get to know a lot. So the mover also mentioned 22 companies that are associated with the DP as having been used for this particular purpose. There are so many, I can't remember all of them by name, and also the acquisition of the property. And there's quite a lot. If you just table 5.7 billion, it's not a small money, and it must have brought a lot of returns. Using his office as a deputy president to exert influence and connive with unscrupulous Ministry of Lands officials to issue allotment letters. That was also another charge that caught my attention. Firms that are associated with the deputy president and his proxies being involved in a tender last year of about 4 billion shillings. The irregular procurement of when all this discussion was going on in the media, the silence, Yani, you didn't know. Sometimes there's a lot that goes under that we don't know, but this petition lays this bare. The use of his office to corruptly influence unnecessary and expensive renovation of his official residence in Karen, Mombasa, that runs into millions of shillings. There is quite a lot. There's somewhere I also read where there's an event company that was used by the deputy president to receive reportedly about 100 million shillings from his office. Gross misconduct, there's quite a lot to talk about, Benji. I don't know what you can pick, but the one...
Ken,
yeah.
You know how you know that this guy, I'm sorry to use this kind of language, but for me, if you remember very well, and I certainly recall, when the deputy president assumed office, he was the chief spokesman of, we found empty coffers. This is a dilapidated government with no money. We found empty coffers, I think he said with 90 million. You know something, Ken? For those of us who are informed, and for those Kenyans even on this space and anywhere who understand anything, imagine as soon as Gachagua said that, you just knew they were eating money. And now the evidence adduced proves exactly the point. The more Gachagua was talking about empty coffers, the more he was filling coffers. And things were just slipping through the cracks and leaking all over the place. Late last year, Gachagua imported a 2024 brand new Range Rover worth 41 million shillings. So nothing makes sense. In fact, even at the swearing in, if you remember, and it is your work as media to look and to use your cameras, Gachagua arrived at Nyayo Stadium for the swearing in, or was it Kasarani, in a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser. That's around the first time most Kenyans saw the brand new model that is there now. So again, this is why... Yes, Ken, and this is why this is the kind of behavior that has diminished Kenyans' trust in public service, because it is simply about getting to government to not only get rich, but to get wealthy. In other countries, people go to industries. Look at somebody like Elon Musk, who is giving tens of millions of dollars to politicians. Tens of millions of dollars, billions of Kenya shillings he's giving away to politicians. Elon Musk, as an example. In Kenya, you have anyone trying to make wealth, trying to make it into government. So they're diminishing public trust. They're looting public resources. Morara has shown us how that is being done. That is just a microcosm of the entire big picture. But just to imagine that Gachagua has been using all these different companies, allegedly, pulling in all these different kinds of deals, you just know that when he was talking about empty coffers, he was actually filling his own pockets. To me, that in itself is impeachable and unforgivable. I'm sorry.
Wow. Can I open it to Jeff? Jeff, you want to say something, Jeff Osiba?
Yes, thank you so much, Ken. Thank you so much, all members in the space. Ken, I'll just be brief. My first comment is that when I look at the impeachment, I think that Gachagua is just guilty as charged. Where I'm seated, I feel that I know this is the first opportunities Kenyans have
And whatever results we are going to get from this process, it will pave way for other leaders, either in government, to face the same road. So for me, I feel that let this process go through all the process go through Parliament, Senate, and if indeed is found culpable or reported or if he's impeached, to get him out of the office. The next one, because our presidents will have been created, the next one will be the president himself, because we know this fight is not about anything, it's about looting. People are fighting about the resources. When this government came in, as just Benji just mentioned, there was spreading everywhere that the coffers were empty. That narrative was to blind Kenyans so that they fill their pockets. Unfortunately, we as a country, there's a saying that they need not the society. We have so many people today in space, even amongst us here in social media, who are very vocal on this government. But they were the same people who are in the forefront campaigning for this government, despite the fact, knowing it clearly that the man whom they were voting, whom they were campaigning for, was not honest. It's only someone who has come from heaven or from Mars who can at least trust. We've known him. We who have been in this country, we've known where he came from. He has the history. Someone waking up early in the morning and entrusting him with the leadership position of a country is just beyond, I'm sorry, probably like years, it's just beyond being foolish. It's something else. But this is what we want. We always want to start something. And I'm sorry, I'm seeing a situation whereby the same people today, probably in 2027, we might kick Ruto out in this seat if someone else. Then the next 1-2 years, we start playing. Ken, it's a very sad state. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether we have a kind of a curse as a country. Because even good people, as soon as they get into government, they just change. We have a sickness, a cancer in our country where everyone wants to be extremely rich, not rich. I know a human being, you are supposed to be able to provide for your family rich, but we want to be in extreme. Someone wants to own, a 20-bedroom house, and you'll only be using one. What is this? Even the Gen Zs came up with an idea, a protest that currently has been hijacked. If you look today in our social media, everybody is fronting him or herself. Even the leaders within the Gen Z who are coming up, we have poisoned all of them. Coming 2027, the same people today, we can go back to our own tribe of Kakuns, voting for somebody not because of the ideas he's presenting us, just because you shared either the last name, you come from the same region. I think we just need to do a lot as Kenyans. We have to accept, even when we are seated here, when we are talking, discussing these problems, we don't have tribes when we are in offices, we don't have tribes when we are sharing a drink, but as soon as a very important issue comes up, we go back to that. But it's good at least we are talking, because they say always a problem can only be solved when people discuss it. But to me, I'm really happy what is happening. If this impeaching Gachagua will bring this regime down, it's my prayer. Lord, hear this prayer. Thank you. I get your point. Your point is, let's go with this, see where we conclude it, and then let's start the other ones, because every Kenyan is a firm believer that Kenya needs a reset button at this point. The other thing that I would have spoken about, and my co-host Benji, I don't know if you'll allow me say this. I think even the officials that the president appointed in the second round of appointment are helping the president. I mean, Benji, if you look at how things are happening in this country, perhaps it's also something that we will need a whole session to talk about. But let me give two more gentlemen an opportunity to weigh in. Yasin Haraira, if you're here, you can take about 3 minutes just to tell us
just
what you think about this petition.
Before Yasin, let me acknowledge that Jeff Osiba's submission was very thoughtful. You really feel for some of our own Kenyans, stepping up and speaking up. You can just tell Ken that, bad governance can be very personal. A lot of the citizens actually feel devastated. People feel heartbroken. And I just want to acknowledge, as a host, as we listen, it's good for the listeners to know that we feel them, that we understand their pain. People sound extremely disappointed, disillusioned even, at a point of wonderment, like, how did our country get here? But let us always never forget that hope dies last, that hope is always there, that one day we shall get it right. It is because of this culture of broken politics, of voting thugs into office. This is what has gotten us where we are. But in time, we will get it right. We will fix this country because we must. We are the only ones that can fix this country. Nobody else is going to come from anywhere to fix Kenya. So, Jeff, I hear you. I feel you, and take hope. Do not despair. People sound like they just like they're just depressed when they think about what's happening. But hope is coming. Hope is on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yasin? Okay, Yasin is quiet. Perhaps he left his gadget on. And Owiti Owayo?
Thank you so much, my brother Ken Mijungu, for this very wonderful platform. The impeachment of the deputy president is a very weighty matter. And, if you look at some of the items that are listed in this charge sheet, actually, you will realize that we have something to do with corruption, which is a very serious scourge in this country. We have an issue of tribalism or nepotism. We have an issue of insubordination. Remember the secretary to the cabinet. That lady, she is actually one of the witnesses. And in so many pages, she has described how the deputy president, in one way or the other, tried to sabotage the government by not, aligning himself with the policy of the government. As a liberal mind and as Kenyans who have a way of viewing things, we know that, there is politics in this as well. This happened at the backdrop of a coalition. Actually, it's a coalition between the ODM, the opposition formally, having a merger with the government, like they're joining the government. There seemed to be some disquiet within Kenya Kwanza government since the influx of ODM. And this is the reason why the mountain is very disturbed. The mountain is disturbed because, during an election in this country, Kenyans are always put in cans of tribalism, that you can only form a merger, you can only form a coalition if you have numbers. You are being asked, what do you bring on the table? So Luos will coalesce at the pivot of their strength, Kikuyus will do the same. Kalajis will do the same. So after election, we are being told that, we have to unite as a country. But we are uniting in tribal clans, in ethnic clans. Okay. So according to me, if our member of parliament today is sitting in parliament on Tuesday, I would critically look at some of these items vis-a-vis, the political atmosphere in our country. I would not just vote to impeach Rigathi on the basis of political persuasions. I would look at it very critically, because as a private citizen, as a citizen who is not in government, I cannot quite clearly tell whether the items listed in those charge sheets, whether they are, verifiable. I cannot tell that. Thank you.
Thank you. I know the feeling. Benji, do you get a feeling that Kenyans are not done?
There's disillusionment, Ken. That's what I've been talking about. There's a lot of national anger, and I wish the president himself would acknowledge this and address this, because somebody talked about, the cabinet that was reintroduced and presented after the disbandment. The general feeling, Ken, is that the president has not gone far enough. The general feeling, at least for the first year, was that the president was trying, but he is still falling short and not hitting the mark. That's just the reality. That's the reality. It was a reality then. It is the reality now. And I think part of the frustration on the part of the president and why they are willing to remove the deputy is because the president feels the pressure from the Kenyan people. And what my own assumption is that if he then feels that there's anyone in government that is not helping him to deliver on the huge mandate which has caused all this anger against him, then he's willing to drop that person. In the case of the deputy president, because he's protected under the constitution, it's not so easy as to fire him as how it used to be in the days of the vice president. So I think the fact that even this lady, Mercy Wanjau, comes out to speak, what this tells me, the secretary to the cabinet, Ken, is that there's a lot of machinations behind the scenes, behind the curtain in this particular administration. And if you notice also the extremely studious silence of Honorable Raila, that tells you there's a lot happening. There's a lot of consulting behind the scenes. There's a lot of fighting behind the scenes. There's a lot of disagreement. You've heard the utterances of people like Honorable Ichungwa as recently as today and the other day and yesterday. He's requested the Inspector General to provide security to members of parliament who have been aggressive on removing the deputy president. There have been allegations that the deputy president is very dangerous, is extremely influential, is very vindictive. You can see the deputy president is in a dogfight with the governor of Nairobi. This dogfight, before it got to court, was first on social media, was also in public. You remember the deputy president asserting in public, in front of the president, Ken, that there are members of government across all echelons, top to bottom, that are sitting in government and are fraudsters. They do not have the requisite qualifications. They have entered government using fake certificates. Your Excellency, wengine wako pande hii na wengine wako hapa na wewe. You can just imagine, Ken, if this was Germany, all those people would be in prison right now as we speak. But they continue to serve. We have a crisis, Ken, and I'm giving you this example because you're asking why people feel. The word I would like to use is heartbroken. People feel disappointed, confused, disillusioned, disappointed, and that's a fact. That's not me saying. And it is the reality of the economy, the reality of a jobless economy, the reality of our products like coffee and tea, we had expected faster acceleration as far as price, as far as returns. So when that is not met, the disappointment, Ken, is what you sense, where people are just feeling completely lost. But I think, as I said, and as we conclude, all hope is not lost. And even if the DP is removed, as Jeff was saying, the DP could be removed, and then the president could also be removed. The DP could be removed, it could stabilize better. If I was him, I would just resign, because why should I be somewhere? Can you imagine what's going to happen if the DP is not removed? I mean, the trust is so broken. And he's going to feel like, you guys tried to take me out. You guys literally tried to take me out. So the trust will be broken even more. The trust will be broken even more, Ken. And so, with the new funding model for universities, with continued allegations of corruption, with the changeover from 844 to CBC and all the challenges therein, when you don't have a clean hands-on, lean and mean administration, you remember the Kibaki days, the kind of ministers and how they were running agendas at high speed, then you just have a government getting bogged down, getting misunderstood, and all the government is attracting is anger day by day. You saw that on Friday. Anger day by day. The youth are so bitter with the government and with Ruto as a person. But all this could change if we get our act right. If we're able to put our heads together and have the right conversations and propose the right solutions and implement, things can turn around. But hey, you and I can only speak. We're only in the fourth estate. We're not in State House. It's them to get their act right. That's the truth of the matter. Thank you.
Benji, we close in 5 minutes. John William has been waiting in the sideline. Just like to give him, I think it's John who hasn't spoken. John hasn't spoken. John, if you're here, just 2 minutes, then we can summarize the whole of this thing. From our perspective, we'll say what will happen going forward from tomorrow, and then we can end it. But this is the first express that we are holding, and I'm glad everyone who joined and the contribution, and those guys who have been sitting here for the last 2 hours. So before we wind it up, John, I'll just give you 2 minutes if you still want to say something.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you so very much. I'm going to be very brief, very brief. And just to pick where Benji left, I think the biggest question that most of us should be asking, why is it so hard for the deputy president to resign, even after being so much cornered? Why do you guys think that it's hard for him to just say, I'm resigning? Because these people are eating. I mean, it is so hard for them to leave from those offices because they are eating. I mean, we are the food. So that is, I feel that really stood out from Benji's submission. Another thing is that I would like to say, for Kenyans, we should stop this idea of every time, after every election, we are complaining. We are having, that is when we see people to be so active in politics, to complain about the government. But when it comes to now where the rubber meets the road, where now we are supposed to vote, that is where now, we should not be blaming our elective representatives. We should start by blaming ourselves. Because we are the ones, Ruto is a representation of what Kenyans are. Rigathi is a representation of, the choices that Kenyans make. So it's not that these people actually got there by their own whatever. We are the ones who have been electing these people. So if we want to sort of have change, let us start by, voting correct and, upright people. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to conclude, and I let Benji also conclude. I just like to remind you once more, and thank you for staying on for so long, that there are 11 charges, and the National Assembly only needs to confirm one. If one out of the 11 are confirmed, then it goes to the trial house, which is the Senate. So the National Assembly will need a 2/3 majority on Tuesday. I'm believing that Gachagua, if he still has a day to decide if he will resign or not, and honestly, I've been saying this for a long time, that The only reason I believe Gachagua is going to resign, forget about the battery of lawyers and everything he's putting in place. I mean, lack of planning. If you don't plan, what is the word? If you don't plan,
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That's the word.
Yes. So he has to, whatever way. People say, Ken, you told us the other day that Gachagua will resign. He's not resigning. Instead, he's putting up his defense. What would you expect him to do? Even talking, I mean, he's put up his defense, but today he's still apologizing, which we started with, which I don't know if it felt like an apology or not. He still has to be organized going forward on what he wants to do. So this is why I keep saying, if Gachagua will be interested in running for public office in this country, he still has a day to resign. And Tuesday morning before 9 a.m., before National Assembly begins debating this, he should not go before the National Assembly to defend himself. Because if this process starts to the end and is impeached, he will never run for office. But Benji, something interesting that I believe in is even if he resigns, we need to stretch our constitution the whole kilometer so that we know what it means. We need to test every aspect of that constitution. Even if he resigns, I believe, because of the criminal charges, and as that the summary I read earlier, the courts can look at the criminal aspects of these charges at the far end. I believe even if he resigns, they could still take him to court on those charges of those criminal charges. So he still has a day. Let's see what happens. He's apologized today. Let's see if the president picks the cue from that. But I'm even doubtful if the president can do that. Then what happens to their working relationship going forward? So I still believe he could. But the 11 charges are most important. Just in summary, in just a minute, then I let Benji close. The ethnic card that has been played in this, that he has made statement to promote division, undermine the core value of our constitution. That is an impeachable offense under 150B, accused of contradicting the government policies and failing to uphold his duties as the deputy president. And this, they're giving the example of when what is it called? When they were evicting people along the riparian area, and they made a cabinet decision, but the following day he went and contradicted all that. Unilateral remarks contradicted the policies of the government. I've mentioned that. Interfered with devolved county functions, undermining devolution and threatening a judicial officer. That is why Sakaja, by the way, is one of the people who are going to testify against Gachagua. And remember the things he said about the judicial officer. Those things are still fresh in our mind. So those are some of the things that they're bringing as impeachable grounds, and they're explaining it and juxtaposing it in the Constitution, the Penal Code, Criminal Code, by interfering with the operations of the county government. I mentioned that, failing to respect and defend the Constitution with the inflammatory remarks that Benji spoke about earlier, engaging in corruption and money laundering. We've spoken about that, allegedly making false and malicious statements and breaching the Penal Code, and the motion also cites gross misconducts, including reckless attacks on the National Intelligence Service, insubordination to the president, and bullying public officers. Now, any of these are impeachable, depending on how they will be anchored in the Constitution and how Mwenge Mutusi will do it, plus the witnesses that will come in. So from Tuesday, once this process is done, and we will be live throughout this session on KTN, a vote will be done. 2/3. Then by Wednesday, Thursday, it needs to be remitted to the Senate. Kingi insists on this matter, and then they begin the whole process. The other week on Thursday, they also take the vote. If that happens, then if they also confirm that impeachment, then it means Gachagua can decide to go to court or walk out. But with his preparations, if he doesn't resign, because I still believe in my heart that this guy is ambitious and still needs to be to go to public office, he might just decide to pull the rug under our very own feet. Now we are thinking he's prepared, he's apologizing, he's going the whole hog, he's a brave man. But is he interested in public office? And I think there really needs to be safeguards to people who come to public service. Just like someone said during this space, that we really need to start interrogating who we take to office, who we vote for. So I think it's something that Kenyans really need to look at. But my parting shot, if I'm a thief, if you arrest me, I will not say, hey, why are you looking at me and not Benji? I think you deal with it, and then we deal with the other ones. I'm just saying, why don't Kenyans just deal with Gachagua? And then when we want to deal with Ruto, it's pretty simple. Get 117 members of parliament to support that motion. Let it go to parliament. Let's get bipartisan support over it. Let's see if the members of parliament can also do the same thing. Yes, but we can't now just start saying, as Kenyan and journalists, because this bench is important to me. This is how we lose this plot, by starting to look at too many things, So let's try this one. Let's go back to Parliament. And all these members of Parliament, hold them to account. Tell them, we need 117 of you to support a motion of impeachment against the president. Let's present it in Parliament. Let's impeach the president also. But the moment we start crying here, both will go, we are going to lose this thing. We're going to lose a constitutional moment. Just like the Jameses lost a constitutional moment, sometimes because of the infighting.
Absolutely.
So that is my position. Let us fight this battle as Kenyans, because we are Kenya and Kenya is our business. And I have nothing absolutely against Rigathi Gachagua, nothing absolutely against the president. They are their own people. But I'm just saying, as Kenyan, as a lawyer, we need to have this working for us. Let's do this, and then let's put the president in his defense. I mean, if we got for Gachagua, what can we get for the president? Benji?
Ken, you can hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Asante, I was actually going to request the formal document, but I'm lucky my phone is very busy, so I've actually found the actual copy of charges, which leads me to believe that you and I and several of our other colleagues will have to do a discussion on TV in the coming days. Allow me to finish this space with a quote, a direct quote from the official charges. A government is like a company. There is shareholding. Kuna wale who have invested out of shares. Kuna wale wameweka kidogo, kuna wale wamekataa. Lakini wote ni wa Kenya. So ndio tukasema, kama wewe umeenda kupanda mahindi, ama wache nipeane example ya ng'ombe, kwa sababu niko Kajiado. Wewe uko na ng'ombe yako ya maziwa. Hiyo ng'ombe imezaliwa ikiwa njao, umeichunga vizuri, umepatia majani, umenunulia dairy mill, umepatia chumvi, umepeleka kwa malisho, umepatia maji, imezaa, imeanza kukamuliwa. Wewe unatakiwa kwanza ukue mtu ya kwanza kukamua hiyo ng'ombe na kunywa maziwa. This is a quote from the deputy president. Without getting too personal, I think he's actually sick. To be talking like this in public, to be thinking this way, these people only think of government as something to skin and eat. This was also sometimes the language of Honorable Raila when he was Prime Minister, talking about sisi tulishinda kiti, but nusu mkate, afadhali kupata nusu mbuzi, nusu swara, bado ni nyama. This kind of sick thinking must stop. Why? For this country to get as developed as Singapore, for this country to move like South Korea, which creates all these products that we're seeing all around, the LG and the Samsungs, etc., for this country to create jobs for its young people, leaders must stop being stupid. Leaders must start to be smart. Leaders must be focused and determined. Leaders must be guided by the Constitution. Leaders must get down to work. Leaders must get serious. Leaders must legislate. Leaders must bring solutions. Obfuscation, by definition, is where you have a target and a goal, and then other things are thrown to obstruct. The people who have done all these things of Kufa Dereva, Kufa Makanga, if Gachagua must go, also Ruto must go, they are the same simpletons, the same minions who didn't understand what they had in hand on June 25th. They didn't understand at all. And because they didn't understand, when you continue to be tribeless, leaderless, etc., you cannot harness the collective energy of patriots who are committed to change. And so you continue to suffer bad governance and all the negative attributes that come with bad governance, joblessness, a broken economy. I realized an orange the other day in Kilimani is 75 shillings, Ken. 75 shillings. That tells you a poor person cannot even get vitamin C. That's the country we're living in. It is unconscionable. And because it's unconscionable, my advice is, just based on these charges that I'm reading alone, Rigathi has to go. Rigathi should go. Even he knows that he shouldn't be in high office. His only own justification is like, nakini na bodo yo mwingine. And the example I was going to give, Ken, from the coalition government days, because some of us are historians, We had an issue where the late Kajwang was accused of giving passports to non-citizens. And I remember when that happened, then he said, oh, yeah, that's true, but PNU on the other side, they're stealing money from the treasury. It was Kimunya at treasury at that time. And that was a very interesting argument to me because he said, yeah, okay, as we're giving passports and collecting the money that comes with that, but the other guys are also stealing money. Whataboutism? That is not a solution. It is juvenile. It is wrong. It is not patriotic. All of these things are killing this country and the future for our children. Because are we ready, Ken, for our kids to go to South Sudan or Eritrea? The answer is no. This country is only for our kids, some of who are 1 and 2 years old today. And so we must protect this country. We must protect the Constitution. We must think far. It is not about broad-based or bread-based government. It's not about handshake. It's not about all these different things. It's about the united country, the Republic of Kenya. And all of us upholding and respecting the Constitution. It is not enough for someone to get caught and then say, well, what about my colleague? What about my boss? What about my majority leader? Let Gachagua go. Let the next occupant come. Let the next occupant know that if you come and you start advocating for Rift Valley or Masai or Luo Nyanza or whatever, then you violate the Constitution and you go as well. And government is not something to be looted to death. Thank you for all that have listened. God bless Kenya. Let's get moving. Let's keep the conversation alive. Let's see the details on Tuesday and let's keep moving forward. But yote tisa kumi ni Gachagua lazima ang'atuke. Asante.